In today's conscious parenting lives, I am talking about the diagnosis dilemma, and I'm I'm aware that lots of parents, including myself for a long time, don't want to label your children. You don't want to pigeonhole your children because they can be judged and seen as only that thing. And in the work that I do, um, there's a strong element around identity and around labels and freedom from getting stuck in a particular role or label. Um, and I've been doing this work for a long time, and what I think is the most important thing is the conscious part, the awareness part, being aware of labels, being aware of the power of them, that the power of diagnosis actually, and how helpful that can be. Um, but also to see a person as a whole person, not one thing, because we're not just one thing. There's so much to us. So I think this element of consciousness is really important. Um, and I remember years ago, I came across this very strongly with my own children who had severe allergies when they were young. They still have allergies and eczema, but it was very severe when they were young. And I remember coming across a mum who felt really strongly she didn't want to get an allergy diagnosis because she didn't want to label her child. Now, for us in that situation, having a diagnosis was freeing because without it, you don't know what you're dealing with. You don't know how to treat that thing. You don't know how to help your child without it. Was in our case. So our children, our eldest was suffering with severe eczema and allergies, and it affected all of our lives really strongly. And once we had a diagnosis, it was it was challenging, but it was also a massive relief because the thing that she was most allergic to, because we did all the sensible stuff and we worked really hard and we tried everything and all the creams and homeopathy and all manner of different treatments and cutting out dairy and, which is the really obvious thing to do straight off the bat. Um, and, but it was when we got a diagnosis that she was allergic to dust. That was massive because, I think anything over a 7 was like an allergy. And for dust, she was like 81. It was like nuts. She's so allergic. So we then knew how we could help her by reducing the amount of dust that she was exposed to. A difficult thing to do, but at least we were empowered with a diagnosis to be able to do that, to be able, and without that, we had been working really hard. Um, and it was quite hard to get to the allergy testing, the support with the allergy testing. It was a battle to get that. But it made a massive difference to all of our lives, huge, huge difference. Um, so having a diagnosis can be really, really powerful. Um, Now, where I am now in terms of, the power of diagnosis is I am a self-identified ADHDer. So um, I don't have a diagnosis for that. And what that means for me is that I've only just started talking about this very recently because in some ways I almost like don't have any proof, right? I don't have that verification from a professional in that field, to say that is truth, but I know. you know, I know. Um, but in terms of support, it can be challenging to get support. And I work with a lot of families because of the nature of the work that I do, because of the gentle, conscious parenting approaches that I'm sharing with people and helping them, which are brilliant for all children and all human beings to be interacting, to be communicating in these gentle and conscious, loving ways. It is vital, absolutely vital, if you have a child who's neurodivergent, because you what we're doing with these gentle and conscious approaches is coming from a foundation of love and acceptance for who we are and who our children are. And that is key. That is so important. Particularly if your child is neurodivergent, so they may be autistic, or they may be an ADHD like me. Um, so it's really crucial, because our world is um is not constructed in a way that is helpful um to those particular people in our society. Um, so the impact of that is massive on mental health and well-being, and yeah, yeah. So it becomes all the more important to parent in these ways. Now, I'm going to share with you a bit from this wonderful book I've shared in another podcast. I'm going to share it again in this podcast because she's written a whole chapter in Your Child Is Not Broken on labels. Why would you want to label your child? And I've um, you know, had these conversations obviously myself with people as well. And I'm just going to read an extract from this book because she puts it so well for her personal experience, which I think will echo a lot of people's experiences and really verify in some ways what I'm saying. One of the things she says in this book, and I think this is a fantastic mindset shift for people, is labels are care instructions. What if you saw it as care instructions, which is a bit what I'm talking about here, with my child eczema. Once I had that label, once I had that diagnosis, we knew how to take care of her. We knew how to help her. We knew how to make things, improve things so that she wasn't constantly itchy and irritated, and which affected everything. I had a child who didn't sleep for 2.5 years. It was really hard. It was really hard because I didn't have these care instructions, right? So I just think that is brilliant, a brilliant mindset shift that she writes about in this book. But I'll also read the first part of this particular chapter to you. Despite describing my child's difficulties to education and health professionals, despite asking for support, despite telling people that Theo was autistic, I was met time and time again with, "He doesn't have a formal diagnosis though, does he?" Repeatedly, the lack of formal diagnosis was used as an excuse to not provide support. It was also used to gaslight me and to call into question my parenting and his mental well-being. In one meeting, a professional suggested that I was encouraging autistic behaviors by telling Theo I believed he was neurodivergent. I was told, if you believe he's autistic, it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy, as if being autistic was A, performative, and B, the worst thing in the world. So yeah, so for anybody, I will put the links in a link in the comments to Heidi's website, where I'm sure you can get hold of a copy of this book. It's a great book, um, called Your Child Is Not Broken. But I know from my clients' experiences, this is really common. You know, feeling like people don't believe you and don't support you. So although in the UK legally to have reasonable adjustments put in place within school and within work, you don't need a formal diagnosis. However, often organizations or professionals can put that in as a barrier, um, and not believe parents, basically. So that is the power of having a diagnosis and having that label. It helps you, it helps, um, the imposter syndrome you might have if for yourself, if you're neurodivergent, um, and you don't have a diagnosis, it can really help with that. And it can also help you get support or your child get support, the support that you need. Um, so yeah, so having yeah, labels and diagnosis can be incredibly helpful, um, for, yeah, as care labels. So let me know what you are taking away from this session. Let me know if any of it's given you a light bulb moment, if it's been reassuring for you, if you've found it helpful. If you have, please share it with somebody else in your life that you think it would also be helpful for. Send it to a family member or a friend. Share it. And also make sure you do like and subscribe this channel so that you see more of these conscious parenting lives as well. Yeah, and thank you for listening. And I hope you found it really, really helpful.